Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation 102. This will be our last Splendid Isolation stream for this year. We come back on the 8th of January, and as always, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
By all the speeches improve, wide average is a man, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for our sword. What's love that heeding for, leaving all your hopes to God? To rule of kings, but toil of servant sweeper. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your giving, and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden, and reap his soul's reward. The blame of foes ye better, the haste of foes ye guard. The cry of hosts ye humour, are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian eyes? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent sigh shall wake God and you. Take up the burden, have done with childish days, the lightly prophet laurel, the ways. Come out to search on my own, to all of thankless years. Nowhere is the judgment joy of tears. Take off the burden through all the endless years.
Okay, that was Take Up the White Man's Burden by our own Chris Gard, who hopefully will join us in a bit. He's going to be a bit late today. Do go out and go and check Chris Gard's YouTube channel. He's got some really great music on there. Good agents. How you going, Mitch? How you going, Adam?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. It's a nice sunny day here at last,
Oh.
it should be hot, but it's not being because we're having quite a cold early summer at the moment.
Yeah, we're having a cold stint as well. It was -6 when I started up my car this morning to go to work.
Whoa! It's quite interesting that because it's not what Europe really wanted this winter, is it? Given the energy costs.
No, I distinctly remember people on the TV, like pundits and that, saying, "Oh, don't worry about the energy stuff because it's going to be a mild winter." And
Yeah.
that's excessively cold for where I am, which is the southeast.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was snow in London, wasn't there, last week or the week before?
Yeah. Apparently, it's actually not that bad up north, but yeah, down here we've got a real cold snap.
I wonder what it's like in Germany, etc., which is generally a lot colder than the UK.
Yeah.
Could be interesting. As always, Adam, and this is going to be our, by the way, for the people in the chat, this is going to be our last stream of this year. We'll come back on the 8th of January. So it's kind of a Christmas special, but it's a bit early really to be a Christmas special. So it's like an end of the year stream, and we're going to look at events this year. But did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up today, Adam?
There is this thing. I'm not really sure if we should talk about it, but there's this thing with this Ngozi woman going and accepting her formal apology from the Prince William's godmother.
Oh, lady somebody or other. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the lady in waiting.
Yeah, that was. I thought that was pretty appalling that the royal family didn't support the lady in waiting at all.
Yeah, especially since some people have done a little digging, and this woman, this Ngozi woman, her backstory is pretty interesting. You know, she's probably actually possibly been committing fraud because she's claimed. I mean, well, I suppose saying committing fraud is quite difficult because the charities don't seem to care, and I'm not sure if it qualifies as fraud if the people you're defrauding are completely ambivalent about it. But she, I mean, from some digging that some people did, it looks like she could have been claiming as much as 60 grand a year in what do you call it, grants for stuff that she didn't really deserve, and she was largely lying about on the applications. And then on top of that, she was operating out of a charity shop which she was getting given to her free rent free by Hackney Borough Council. And I think it's Hackney Borough Council anyway, but one of the councils around there. And on top of that, she was essentially using that to sell. Like her son has one of these. I don't know if you like. I'm quite into watches, right? And there are these businesses where they essentially they pretend that like they're selling like fancy watches for like a couple £100 a pop, but they're Chinese timepieces. So
they're basically fake flash watches.
Yeah, so like some of these brands, they'll have a watch that's made that's a little bit better than the regular Chinese stuff, and it'll be like 15 quid's worth, and they're flogging it for like £130. I don't know what this guy could be flogging, 40 to £50 watches, and they cost him like a couple of quid a piece.
And if it's a charity shop, what charity was this money going to? Presumably just the woman and her son.
Well, supposedly, I mean, obviously she says it's for a charity for black women that are the victims of domestic abuse, but there doesn't seem to be much evidence of many actual people.
I know she changed her name, didn't she? She wasn't originally called what she's called now. Like the Ngozi is made up.
Yeah, she married. I think she married a Nigerian man with the Fulani name or something like that, and then she changed her first name. But yeah, essentially, her son owns this shop, this brand. Apparently, it's gone out of business, but like they've still got lots of the watches, and they flog them through this charity shop that they get rent free. And it says in the charity shop that like half of it goes to the charity, so it's not even really non-profit or donated goods. Not really.
So she's getting grants. She gets a free shop, and then she's claiming she runs a charity shop, which might not actually be true.
This is what people seem to think is going on based on a little bit of research that some people have done.
I bet nothing happens to her. Any money you
Well,
like.
she also claimed money from, I mean, some of the charities. I think she claimed a lot of it from the London Charity Commission, but she claimed, I think one of them was a 60 grand grant from Comic Relief. So,
Wow.
and none of I think the other worrying thing about this as well is that none of these organisations are actually checking up to see if these people are actually using this for what they're using it for.
Wow.
It also kind of seemed to be implied that, because I suppose that there's supposed to be like an independent, there's supposed to be an independent person that you can use to check your books, essentially, for charitable, I suppose for charitable grant applications. And it kind of appears as if it's just her spelling her name differently.
Ooh.
Posing as this independent, but again, they're like, is there no checking of this stuff? I don't know how any of this works. I mean, I used to do a lot of raising money for charity back in the day, and back then it used to be really difficult to find a charity that wasn't up to its eyeballs in fraud and corruption, and it seems to be a lot worse now.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? So the royal family threw a lady in waiting under the bus for this creature. Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh dear, how typical. It's just such a typical 2022 story, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Lady of Shalott is saying in chat that, if I'm thinking right, that the History Debunked has done a video on this person.
Yeah, no, I stuck that on
right?
the screen. I know History Debunked. I think he did, actually, because I did follow him. My mileage with his videos varies depending on what he's talking about, but quite often he's very good.
Yeah.
I think he gets too slagged off sometimes, to be honest with you. I mean, as an old boomer chap, I think he does. I mean, people call me a boomer, but he's a hell of a lot older than me.
Yeah.
And I think for an old boomer chap, he does quite well, really, on the whole.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, an interesting story and not at all surprising.
No, but I mean, people have made appeals to the Charities Commission to say to investigate her. And some papers have basically implied that they are, but I haven't seen any evidence of this. I think that this is just being ignored.
And as Lady of Shalott has said in the chat here, look, Lady Hussey was made to meet this grifter and apologise to her. I have to be honest. If I'd been that lady, I would have just said, no way, I'm not doing it. I would have lost my position with the royal family rather than apologise to her.
Yeah.
But then I'm pretty strict on that stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like you, like I said, I haven't watched any of the World Cup or anything like that because the England team kneeling before every game makes me feel physically sick. It really does. It makes me ashamed to see them doing it. And I think that is probably true of most real Englishmen, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think people are still booing when they do that at the football matches.
Well, the league teams have largely stopped doing it, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because of that, because they were getting booed every time they did it. It's only the England team, because they're so woke, that continues to get and their manager is so woke. Although why they're not going to sack this guy after the number of times he's failed? It's England managers generally get sacked if they fail on two big competitions. He's now failed on 2 or 3, hasn't he?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any murmurings about getting rid of him, though. Usually it's a lot quicker than this.
Well, he's very politically correct, and it suits people. I suspect that's the main reason.
Yeah, there seems to have been a lot of groundwork to preserve his image through this sort of failure. He does see it's odd. I mean, I don't like to. I really don't watch football, mainly because I've just never been a football guy.
Yeah, same.
But as an outsider looking in, it does kind of appear like this guy has a bit more institutional backing than your regular football manager. But that might just be me.
Yeah, Lady of Shalott in the chat says he thinks the fans are racist. So the people who pay his bills, basically, Yeah. I mean, it's the fans who ultimately pay for the England team and the England manager. Except if they don't show up and watch the games, he's not going to earn a lot of money, is he? Really?
No.
I think it's just appalling, frankly. Mitch, anything to add on this subject?
On the topic of, I'll just say something quick on safeguards. Like what? I mean, half the country wants to mate anyway because it don't seem as that successful. as England manager. So it's like,
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just saying. I mean, I know he's lost a lot. England didn't get as far as they should have done in the World Cup, and the same thing happened in the European Cup, didn't it?
yeah, I'm also hearing in France you got big quote far right young blokes they're mobilising to prepare for what's going to happen tomorrow, whether France wins or loses. Or
they get riots, don't they? Like they've had huge riots over Morocco, for example.
Yeah, whenever
all over Europe, not in Morocco.
Yeah, it's like when the Tunisians won or lose, the Tunisians riot. When the Moroccans win or lose, they riot. Not just in France, but they also do the same in Belgium and the Netherlands. And apparently there are some Moroccans in Germany as well. So it seems it's just a belt at the minute of countries suffering from the usual suspects on that question.
I suppose England is just lucky that Pakistan doesn't do very well in football, and and probably Albania these days too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have a first? Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
I was going to say with Albania, it's more Switzerland. That's got to be Albanians in football these days.
Yeah. The manager I like is Matt Le Tissier, but that's for a different thing, which is going to be something I'll talk about in a bit. But Matt Le Tissier seems a pretty based former football manager, or maybe he's still a football manager, I'm not sure. I know he got sacked at one stage because he was talking out about the China virus.
Yeah, I think I think Gary Neville spoke against him or something. I can't remember. Like Gary Neville was bollocking him, I believe. So it's like he's got the shit libs in football going after him as well. So he's got to be worth some tuppence at least.
Yeah, it's just craziness. Did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up, Mitch, for this evening?
I said about that French qualifier, I think. About usual stuff in Ukraine, you've got apparently in Poland, the commander-in-chief of their police nearly got killed by a gift from Ukraine that exploded in his office.
Wow, what a bomb!
Yeah, and they're blaming Russia for it because why not?
Oh, of course, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
but it was actually from Ukraine.
Yeah, Western Ukraine, if I remember correctly. So it's not even anywhere near the Russian lines.
See, I've heard this theory. I don't know if you've heard it, but I've heard this theory that one of the reasons that Poland is desperately trying to expand their military is they're hoping if Russia does actually win and Ukraine falls to bits, there's bits of Western Ukraine that Poland would like to get because they used to be part of Poland.
The Banderites in the 1940s wiped a lot of the Poles out or expelled them. So, it's as bad as likely as Hungary going to war with Romania over Transylvania, for example. So, if NATO, for argument's sake, were to say to Poland, okay, you're welcome to take over Western Ukraine if you so wish, but why don't we just do it in the name of that intermarium idea or that free seas concept?
I've heard people saying that like if Ukraine basically goes to bits over the Russians, then the Poles might try and send in a peacekeeping force in inverted commas that would try and hang on to that bit of Western Ukraine that used to be Polish.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if let's say for argument's sake, NATO would say it's okay, then they would do it because the Polish are very paranoid about the idea of Russians because they've already got a border with Belarus who are anti-Poland. But then let's say Russia annexes all of Ukraine, that Poland's going to be looking over its shoulder every 5 seconds at Russia because, so for example, the ruling party in Poland, Law and Justice, they blame Russia for the plane crash that killed off their president, I think it was, one of the Kaczynski brothers, 12 years ago. So it's neither the Polish or the Russians like each other.
I know they hate each other big time, for historical reasons. But I'm just NATO isn't going to get involved in Ukraine. I hope to God, because that's World War III if they do. I mean, really, but the Poles on their own, if Ukraine collapse totally? Maybe. I'm still of the opinion that the Russians really only want Ukraine up to the Dnieper River and possibly Odessa in the south. I think that it would suit the Russians not to have a border directly with Poland. They'd kind of like a Ukrainian rump state in between.
I mean, one thing I'd say is so Russia's friendly with Hungary and Serbia. Now, Serbia's getting absolutely crap kicked out of it over Kosovo because Kosovo's kicking off again, apparently. I haven't really taken notice of it.
Yeah, just to let people in the chat know, like I was, Mitch and I were watching a stream that Semyagog did, which was very interesting the other day, which was all about this kind of stuff in these areas. Sorry, Mitch, carry on.
Yeah, so you got pipelines that connect, for example, Hungary and Serbia to the Russian gas and whatnot. And that's the main reason why Hungary and Serbia aren't. I mean, Hungary's got problems of its own about like food inflation and whatnot, but they're not going to freeze to death in the summer like the Germans and my area are doing as of late. So there's that going for Hungary. Then, but the thing is, NATO and the EU are pressuring the Hungarians more and more because now that Poland is fully on board with the whole Ukraine bandwagon, now Poland is turning on Hungary. So Hungary's got history. Hungary's list of allies are growing smaller and smaller. So if I were Russia, I'd just annex Ukraine just to get a border with Hungary and embolden them to like be a lot more bold in regards to opposing the EU. Because Poland,
look, you're right, because at one stage, like Hungary was kind of allied with Poland, wasn't it? But that's kind of fallen through the floor as Poland has more and more swallowed the corporate globalist big gay thing, you know.
Yeah, you got Poland, for example. Whenever anything gets done to them, but just blame the Russians, even most Ukrainians that do it. I've heard apparently, so on the topic of like NATO being at war with Russia, it's like what? I mean, I've heard apparently there are judges from Ukraine being taught by the British legal system on how to prosecute war crimes against the Russians. And then I've heard apparently there are, I think it was like, I don't know if it was SBS or Royal Marines, apparently there's personnel from those sort of branches who volunteered to be on the Ukrainian side.
Oh, look, for certain, I don't have the slightest doubt that there are SAS and SBS special forces guys from the UK in Ukraine. I have no doubt of that at all. But apparently there were 400 Royal Marines in Ukraine until recently.
Yeah.
And the claim from the Ministry of Defence was they were defending the British Embassy and when the British Prime Minister visited there. But that is bullshit. You do not need 400 Royal Marines to defend the British Embassy. I mean, even the Americans who go over the top on this sort of stuff have like 50 Marines in a dangerous embassy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard of I've heard of one for sure. I think there was a second Royal Marine who died in Ukraine. So it's like so a lot of us Royal Marines, they're going to end up getting absolute shit cans going off what's going on in Ukraine as well. So you just sat there looking as a spectator. Why are the Marines deployed in or volunteering for Ukraine?
Well, they shouldn't be able to. I mean, like, if they're still actually on the books of the British forces, they shouldn't be able to. Like I said, I'm sure there are special forces there from Britain and America. Absolutely, certainly there are. But but none of the regular British troops or Royal Marines really should be serving in Ukraine if they're still part of the British Armed Forces. That's really illegal.
Yeah, isn't it like you can get your citizenship taken from you or something like that, or prosecuted?
Well, I mean, apart from anything else, like the Russians have already kept. Actually, I think it was the Donbass forces, the breakaway republics who don't want to be part of Ukraine. They captured at least 2 former British soldiers, and they would have been within their rights to execute them. They didn't. The Russians actually stopped them and released them.
Yeah, and it's what I mean. In that example, I mean, I don't get why the Russians did that. On the other hand, what was it now? Oh, I lost my train of thought now.
Well, I do understand why the Russians did it, because it was a good thing for them to do from the point of view of like world publicity, because everyone's trying to claim, Putler is the new Hitler and all this kind of stuff, and of course Putler made sure that these former British soldiers weren't executed and were released. So it was good publicity for him.
I mean, the British government has sanctioned Graham Phillips, I think his name is. He's a journalist who's reported on the Donbass war since 2014, and the British government have pretty much like depersoned him. Totally, and it's just like, I don't get why that deal ever happened, because those Azov types that were released as part of that deal. I mean, they just end up being in Turkey, and historically, when you have bored veterans who've got nothing to do, write memoirs and so on, it doesn't bode well for, let's say, a country like Russia invading Ukraine, or either for Zelensky in the long term, because some of those nationalists don't particularly like him.
Look, my opinion is that Russia's not so much invaded Ukraine as they're trying to liberate those bits of Ukraine which are ethnic Russian. Like the east of Ukraine is the east and the south of Ukraine is mostly Russian speaking and mostly ethnically Russian, and would prefer to be part of Russia. Most of it.
Yeah, I've heard apparently the Kremlin are planning on doing referendums in Chernigov, Sumy, and Poltava. So that's like pretty much the eastern half of Ukraine, like east of the Dnieper, is pretty much going to be Russian by the end of all this. And then you got Odessa and Kherson, which, I mean, perhaps if the Russians plan on taking it back, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I mean, I would imagine that Russia would kind of like to get hold of Odessa, which is basically a Russian city anyway. But, I mean, time's going to tell. I'm still of the opinion that come the spring, Ukraine is going to be up shit creek without a paddle, because the West is running out of weapons to send these people. Even the Americans are running out of weapons to send them.
Yeah, I saw one article about... Oh, sorry. I saw one article where it said, like, the Ukrainians were demanding, 300 tanks, 500 artillery pieces, and 600 to 700 IFVs, infantry
flying vehicles. Yeah, and where are they going to get those from? Like, Britain and Germany between them have less than 500 tanks, and none of them are really suitable to give to Ukraine. They're the wrong sort. And neither Germany or Britain has anything like 600 infantry flying vehicles, and the Americans don't, unless they were to take them off their own forces, which they would be extremely stupid to do.
Yeah, it's not just that. It's in terms of the infrastructure strikes that Surovikin's done. I mean, half of Ukraine's energy consumption has been wiped out overnight. So the Ukrainians have said 50 missiles launched, 47 intercepted, so only 3 hit. But those 3 missiles that hit happened to wipe out half of Ukraine's electrical grid overnight.
Yeah,
so there must be
the amazing Ukrainian air defenses.
Yeah, those must be some damn good missiles. If A, they can intercept, and B, if those 3 Russian missiles must be so damn good if they can wipe out half an electrical grid in the space of a day.
But you've also got to remember, Mitch, that the Western military analysts, the public military analysts, of course, have been turning around and saying, "Oh, Russia's going to run out of missiles next week," for about the last 5 months. It's like there's no common sense involved in it at all, as far as I can work out. Adam, did you have anything you wanted to add on this subject? Oh, hang on, I think Adam stepped away for a moment. How you going there, Chris?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are we?
Yeah, not bad. We played your White Man's Burden song as our opening song, which is kind of becoming our theme. And I did tell people to go and check out your YouTube channel, where you have a lot of good music.
Yeah, that song
how are
seems
you today?
Yeah, not too bad. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's all right, mate.
Yeah, that song seems to do pretty good, so people obviously like it. But I can't actually. I've only just woken up as well, buddy. So whatever's on the agenda, let's go to that.
All right. Well, I always go around and ask people if they had a first subject they wanted to bring up. and
Yep.
Atman and Mitch have had their goes. Did you have one that you wanted to talk
No.
about particularly?
No, not as of yet, buddy.
All right. Well, then I'm going to do my first subject, which is looking at the China virus and the vaccine mandates that have now died away, but were a big deal, but are still being plugged all over the West, and the increasing evidence from like really good doctors and scientists that some of these vaccines are causing damage to people, including death.
Yeah, well,
there's
as I
just
said,
more
like
and more
that-
evidence coming up.
Yeah, as I said when that topic was coming up privately, yeah, I like all the stuff that now some of these, like, you know, quite brave politicians and stuff are starting to say publicly. It's like this is literally exactly what people like us were saying for the past year and a half, 2 years, mostly a year and a half when it came to the vax stuff. But it's just like, yeah, this is not news to me. None of this is news. We all knew this is what was going on, but it was just being suffocated. So it's just too little, too late, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're quite right, and you're correct. Like we were saying this 18 months ago at least, but it's.
And I have a
interesting
feeling
to
that
see-
I have a feeling that this is basically just a way of covering their asses. The massively ensuing class action lawsuit is going to come in.
Well,
and these people are going to be sweating.
That's possible, but like like in UK, for example, the people who are speaking out about this are backbench MPs. They're not part of the government.
Yeah, I don't know. I just still think
but what
they're
was
covering their ass.
disappointing is, but what was disappointing is you saw the House of Commons, which has got like, I don't know what it is, 700 MPs or something. There was
only
like
5 in there.
Yeah, there was hardly anybody. It was absolutely crazy. Lady of Shalott is pointing out a good channel to go and check out. And one reason Dr. John Campbell is a good channel to check out is originally he was a total shill for everything the government wanted to do. And as more and more evidence has arrived, he's completely reversed his position and is now trying to tell the truth. So,
Is this the bald guy with the glasses?
yeah, he's actually a registered nurse, but he's got a doctor's degree.
Yeah, I think I remember when people were first starting to show clips of him where he was starting to sort of question stuff.
And now he's full on doing it. And it's so funny because you watch his videos on YouTube, and because YouTube is like YouTube, there's this great big warning underneath, all the time. And he's put these signs on his channel now saying, follow the evidence wherever it leads you. That's constantly there,
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched a documentary the other day that you can find on Rumble. Let me just go and check up what it was called. Where are we? I know, because I know it's in our Discord.
Yeah, I don't blame any of them for like trying to supporting it and boosting it at the beginning when everyone was desperate to get some sort of prophylaxis for it. But yeah, it was after it all sort of ironed out within about 6 months that at that point, if you weren't already seeing that something was very wrong, then
I agree with that. But I mean, although I said a China virus test, I don't know. I'm pretty healthy. I've never had a test, let alone a vaccine. Oh yeah, here we go. Go and check out, guys, if you want to. And as I said, it's on Rumble. It's called "Safe and Effective: A Second Opinion." That's a British documentary about people who have been really seriously harmed by these new so-called vaccines. But yeah,
although I appreciate it, as a general,
that was my.
I think your internet started bugging out, so you're quite behind.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, sorry, Chris. You carry on. What were you saying?
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the this safe and effective, etc., etc. But as a general rule, I don't really watch documentaries for this sort of stuff because documentaries are designed to frame something a certain way. So if you wanted to or get some even-handed kind of information, a documentary is definitely not the way to do it. The best example was the two competing documentaries of Michael Jackson being accused of the, alleged pedophile stuff. But there was that Leaving Neverland, or whatever the one was called, where everyone came away from it believing, oh my God, he was a pedophile. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And then there was a counter documentary that was just as convincing and just as persuasive, and everyone was left that going, well, I don't know what the fuck to believe now. So documentaries are sort of a bit funky, but it's still watch it for entertainment video.
They can be. I didn't watch either of those because I didn't give a shit about Michael Jackson. But I guess as a musician, he's probably more interesting to you. But
well, not that. It's just that I grew up, like I was growing up when Michael Jackson was enormous. So it was like just saturated in the culture. So
yeah, I certainly remember his music. But like I like the music I like, but I don't really follow musicians as such, if you see what I mean. Mm-hmm. Like in terms of their political views or whatever they do and don't do. I certainly heard the pedophile allegations, and I've got no idea whether they were true or not, to be honest with you. But yeah, Ario in the chat is saying Musk thinks that Fauci should be arrested. And so I tell you what, that's one of the most base takes that Musk has had so far, in my opinion. And I don't know what you guys think about the Twitter tapes or whatever they're calling them that are being dumped continually.
The files dump.
Yeah, the Twitter files. What do you guys think about that stuff? I've just been quite amazed that Musk has put it all out there.
It's the same thing as the COVID stuff. It's literally like, yeah, we knew all this was going on. It's like we already knew this, but now it's just proof. It's like the only reason we needed the proof was to maybe, I guess, show the other ones that the people that didn't believe that Twitter was doing that stuff. I mean, other than that, if he's just giving it to his own audience, and people already knew that was happening anyway. I guess this is good though, because it means it's good material for potential lawsuits in the future, big lawsuits. So,
well, I mean, the latest one I think is that there were 80 FBI agents monitoring Twitter. 80 agents, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, it was a huge company. I mean, the FBI usually monitors basically all big companies, don't they?
Yeah, but
especially if they're involved in politics.
But I mean, 80 agents who were actually like talking to the people who ran Twitter. So like, there's no. You talk about feds, like Semiagog always likes to say everyone's a fed.
Everyone's a fed except me. Yeah.
Unless they're proven not to be. And I think that kind of vindicates him, doesn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. And they're doing the same thing with Facebook. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense too, because like you got to remember that the FBI is basically a political arm for the Democratic Party, so they're going to have their finger, they're going to have the finger in every pie that's worth fingering.
I mean, I don't know.
Sorry, I'm carrying on.
I was just going to say, I don't know what your take on this, Chris, or anything is, but I have a really tiny Twitter profile, right? I had sort of 220 followers or something. Just occasionally would throw out the odd sort of milquetoast tweet, and I'm finding since this Musk takeover, every reply I'm making to any lefty, I'm ratioing them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
right.
putting out tweets that are getting sort of multiple dozens of likes, and my followers are just blowing up, and I'm tiny, so I found happening to big accounts.
Found the exact same thing. I went from basically getting minuscule engagement, unless like someone like AA retweets something that I do, then I get maybe 20 likes or something. I mean, this is I monitoring likes and stuff is really dumb, but it does come up and you can't help but ignore it because it's like it's pushed in your face with the notifications. But yeah, it's overnight after the takeover, engagement just like quadrupled or quintupled. It was just ridiculous. I was like, as if I was getting suppressed. I'm fucking no one. I've only got like 400 followers or something stupid.
But apparently everyone was getting shadow banned and suppressed who was on the right.
Yeah. It's like, fuck. And you're right as well. Like the ratioing of sort of crazy fucking leftist takes is is just skyrocketing. So it's good. I mean, it's evening out the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried that it's going to radicalize a whole new generation of water carriers for the regime in how important it is to keep us fucking buried.
Yeah.
Can't have the truth getting out there.
No.
I was just going to ask you, Alan, because you were away at the time. What's your opinion on the fact that like a lot of, as Chris was saying, like stuff we knew 18 months ago, pretty much about the China virus and the vaxes and all the rest of it, is now increasingly being told in places like the House of Commons.
Yeah, it's a tough one though, isn't it? Because it's like they're not gonna admit. Like I saw a thing, was it a JF clip where he was looking at excess deaths. I'm not sure where the graph was from. I imagine it's from the United States. And he was looking at spikes in the excess deaths and how they've kind of become quite unabated in the time since the sort of lockdowns have gone and COVID's sort of been put away. And these people will never admit that they've probably put something out there that's actually killing potentially thousands of people, maybe even more.
Worldwide, tens of thousands, I suspect.
Quite possibly, yeah. You know, highly likely, in fact. And of course, this is going to continue. This is going to continue to be a problem for a long time. You know, I mean, they gave a lot of these companies protection from liability at the time. I don't know if that's going to be able to hold up. I imagine they'll have to keep it up.
I wonder in America, though, because America is so litigious, and you're going to end up with class action lawsuits over there, I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
I mean, do you remember they tried to cover up the research in inverted commas that the drug companies were doing for 70 years, but eventually an American judge opened it.
Is it the FDA or something like that? That it was like some law, some code. I don't know how it works. It's too complicated for me. But the fact that by default all vaccines produced are by default then all onus is on the government. Basically, only the government's liable because the government's the one that has to purchase the vaccines to distribute them.
Well, I know on this documentary I watched, and I take your point about documentaries, Chris, but the British one I watched, this dude from Glasgow had lost his leg, and he got 120,000 quid for losing his leg, which was a direct result of the so-called vaccines.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they'll designate it to people that were like so-called severely disabled. I mean, that is obviously a severe disability. But it's like it doesn't cover the innumerable amount of loss that was done because of not just the vaccine itself, but the measures, the mandates.
Oh, they had guys like on this documentary.
Civilizationally destructive.
Yeah, Chris, they had guys on this documentary who were boxers. They had guys who were world-class Latin American dancers. People who used to go to the gym every day, like really into fitness folks who just had their life ruined.
Duke, don't you know that that was always happening anyway, and we're only just noticing it now because we're focusing on it? It never happened. It was always happening before. I don't know what to tell you. FIFA World Cup players were always just dropping dead randomly on the field, like
tennis players, yeah. Cricketers. I mean, there's a lot of people. Shane Warne, like very famous Australian cricketer, suspiciously dropped dead after he had a booster. But I'm sure it was nothing to do with the vaccine, right?
That like when someone's got a resting heart rate of 50, it's perfectly normal for their heart to explode.
Yeah.
It was really infuriating. I remember bringing up the myocarditis point to someone, and essentially getting called various names, and then within 2 weeks of that, the government had quietly added myocarditis to the side effects page.
Yeah. I mean, the Franklin, who is a friend of the channel, very good Aussie YouTuber. Do go and check him out. I think he's one of the very best Australian YouTubers. His wife got like really bad heart problems after she got the jab, Yeah, it's just I've just heard too many stories from too many people. It's like, all right, it's only people telling you, but there are so many, you know. And I don't know how much longer they can keep the lid on this. I know they're going to try because, as Chris said, they don't want to pay out all this money, but I wonder how much longer they can keep the lid on it.
I'm just reading this BBC article now that was only the 2nd of December. They're still pumping this thing like infectious COVID virus can stay on some groceries for days. Remember when they were pushing that right at the start, like beginning of 2020? They're like, oh, we need to sanitize every single surface because we did this study and we found that coronavirus can live on like metal surfaces for 3 months. So
don't you remember, Chris? Don't you remember?
It all turned out to be bullshit.
Don't you remember AA saying that Mrs. AA insisted on him wiping all of the groceries down when he bought with like antiseptic or something? It's like,
And here they are trying to push. They're trying to push the whole cycle all over again. It's fucking incredible.
I think something that people have to be wary of as well is this idea that, because a lot of the people that were coming out with cringe takes 2 years ago are now sort of seen to be on side.
Yep.
That they won't just fall straight back into that habit if the media pressure amounted again. You know, those people would probably slip right back into that frame.
Yep.
Well, I'm quite proud to say that this channel has been skeptical about this stuff. Like, this is our 102nd episode, and we do one a week. And we've been skeptical of this since our very first episode. So, you know,
Splendid skeptic stream.
yeah. So definitely. But anyway, that was my first little subject to bring up. And I think, and Mitch, did you have anything you wanted to say about that one, mate?
There's nothing I can say about hasn't already been said, to be honest.
No worries. All right. Well, look, because this is our last stream of the year, I thought what we'd do is we'd look back on 2022. This is going to be a big black pilling, I dare say. And what are our takes on this year? What's been good, if anything, and what's been bad? And where do you see it going next year? I think that should probably be our main subject for this evening as our last stream for this year. Anyone want to start us off?
I mean, I could start. I suppose the good things of this year, maybe a bit cringe, but Musk taking over.
Yeah. One thing I'd say, Ammon, also is I think the growth of real life events is probably a good thing. That I know you've been to, and Chris has been to. So
yeah, a lot of that's been doing pretty well. There's so many that have sprung up as well. I'm going to try and make more time in my calendar next year to get out to more of them. But
apparently there are even basket weavers in Melbourne, which I didn't know.
There should be heaps.
Yeah. The national focus basket weavers have gone global. So
yeah.
Yeah, they're a good bunch.
Be prepared though, because there are a lot of Zoomers.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to be kids for absolute sure. I mean, one reason I want to go next year is because I'm easily going to be the oldest person there. So, like I'm in my late 50s, so I'm easily going to be the oldest.
I suppose the negative for me was, it's going to be the census, isn't it?
Well, that was one of many, if you ask me, but yeah.
And kind of seeing as well in the weeks since how the media's they talked about it for 30 seconds, like when they were forced to, but they have basically buried that again. You know, people have gone to not talking about it very quickly.
What's this one? I don't know what this is. Bilbo still mad about the Belushi bust up. What's that?
Wasn't that AA's Who Would You Do competition?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Monica Bellucci is absolutely drop dead beautiful. I mean, she's a dumb bitch, but she's.
It came up on this like I mean, I'm sure you would have been aware of this absolutely ridiculous "Who Would You Do" competition that AA runs on Twitter.
Yes, vaguely.
So ridiculous, but it's like it's hilarious because he runs it like Vince McMahon, like he properly gets into it. It came up to the finals between Jennifer Connelly and Monica Bellucci, and then
Bellucci,
some,
definitely,
and then a bunch of wops decided to send in the bots to rig the election.
Oh dear.
And it's all of a sudden Monica Bellucci had like 2,000 votes in one minute.
There was a 2 a.m. vote dump.
Yeah, so exactly. It did the big Biden.
It was a bit like Trump versus Biden.
It was exactly like that. They were neck and neck. It was literally the Brexit ratio right up until the last hour, and then last minute dump. It's just like. Whoop, whoop.
Oh look, I got to say, purely on looks, Bellucci every time. I did hear AA saying that he thought that Bellucci was unattainable. I don't know.
That is everything that he was saying was exactly correct. Like that, there is that element of approachability that Jennifer Connelly that makes her more appealing, which sort of moves past that abstract.
She's
lust
a bit more average, is Jennifer Connelly.
But she's stunning. But like at the same time, it's like it'll add that extra dimension of affection as well as the sexual lust. So whereas with Monica Bellucci, you know that if you entered a relationship with her, she would probably be throwing plates at you in the first day.
Oh, for sure. But I mean, she's Italian, she's Italian, isn't she? Don't you expect that with these hot-blooded Latins?
I got no time for them, mate.
I don't know. Monica Bellucci is a stunning-looking woman, but it's a pity her brain doesn't match her looks, in my opinion. But but then if you were to ask me like to absolutely drop dead gorgeous women, like that sort of film star thing, I'd say Marilyn Monroe and Sophie Loren. Giving my age away. But look at them when they're younger, Adam. Honestly, man, absolutely drop dead. But yeah, and the funny thing was, Sophie Loren was married to the same dude for like donkey's years.
Yeah.
I mean, not Marilyn Monroe had her big time problems, but Sophie Loren was married to this old dude who was extremely rich, of course, like for a very long time. And as far as I know, never strayed. Never heard anything about her doing so anyway. And if you look like her, she certainly could have done. So, so there's that. And I think loyalty in women is an underrated thing. I mean, I think it's fairly rare, but, loyalty in women is quite important.
Mr. Gently Benevolent says, AA just wants to be little AA watching Labyrinth again with the JC thing. I mean, probably true.
Look, one of the nicest things about AA is when he's talking about his daughter. I think he's probably a pretty good dad. Because his daughter seems to wrap him around her finger quite easily. So,
spends a lot of time with her. It's good. That's all that matters. It's time.
Yeah.
Quality time.
Yeah. I mean, look, and dads are important, the women we find today, which is going to bring me on to another subject I wanted to talk about, very often have daddy issues because they didn't have a dad.
Yeah.
Women who have a good relationship with their father generally tend to be much better than women who either didn't have an indoors dad or had a bad relationship with him. So that's quite important.
Oh, it's massively important. Like, I mean, I didn't know my dad growing up, but I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and so my grandfather was like my father figure.
Fair enough.
And he was a constable in the Hong Kong Special Police, and he was like considered a bit of a pillar of the community, and like everywhere he went, everyone used to talk to him with sort of respect and reverence. So I used to look up to him like a hero.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. He was like like an absolute figure of legend to me.
Yeah.
And that
Well,
that helped. But even then, I still kind of spent a few years resenting the fact that I didn't actually have an actual father in my life.
Yeah. Yep.
Your granddad, if he was in the Hong Kong police, that would have been quite adventurous back in the day too.
Yeah.
Like they had triads and all sorts of crap going on in Hong Kong, so that would have been very interesting. I bet he had some good stories.
Yeah. He was full of brilliant stories actually, including when they came back to the UK, they drove back, and they were having to bribe their way across borders through Central Asia.
Cool. That would have been really cool. This is one thing I think we miss these days. Like my granddad was like that because my granddad served in India between the wars, and he was absolutely full of stories of on the northwest frontier of India and all this kind of stuff that were, when you were a little boy, they were just so inspiring, and I think we lack that a bit today.
Well, there's no actual accessible frontier anymore, is there, for people to go and challenge themselves on?
Well, one of the things Chris and I have been looking at with other people in the Australian history streams is when Australia was a frontier. And hopefully, like we've done 2, but I reckon we'll probably end up doing 4 or 5 in the end. Yeah. And even when I went to the Northern Territory in the year 2000, 22 years ago, nearly 23 years ago now, it still had a little bit of a frontier vibe. I don't know if it does now because I haven't been back for quite a while. But in those days, the Northern Territory still did feel a bit like it was a frontier area. It had these enormous cattle stations. There were loads of wild animals all over the bloody place. There's big Aboriginal areas which are still tribal, and you have to get a permit to even go into them. One or 2 of which I did. I think frontiers are kind of important to people, actually, in some respects.
Yeah. Well, Hitchens kind of makes this point in Abolition of Britain. He says there was a point where, the average, middle class couple had probably been on holiday to France or Germany, but every street of every town of every sort of working class neighborhood, there would have been at least one person that had been to the far reaches of a southeast colony. Or to Africa, and they'd put down riots or rebellions or whatever.
100%. Yeah, totally true. And it's overlooked totally today, even by people on the right.
Yeah.
So, as you say, in any little small working class community, whether it was in London or Birmingham or Glasgow or wherever it might have been, or Sydney in Australia or Melbourne, there would have been these guys who had been to these extremely exotic places and, like you say, they've done extraordinary things.
Yeah. And the thing is, I saw a glimpse of that. I didn't really know what I was seeing at the time, but I saw probably the very, very last little wisp of this, which was my grandfather, but then also his cousin who lived in the same village a couple of streets over. He had been a fighter pilot stationed out in Aden.
Cool.
So but of course this was really commonplace at one point, and now it's everywhere absent. So. And that has got to do something for a national psyche.
Yeah, I agree. Look, we always talk about differences between the US and Britain. And of course, the US had their own frontier, the Wild West, which gradually went and probably closed down around, I don't know, 1900, 1910, about that kind of sort of time. But Britain's frontier was the empire. That was our frontier. And it was all over the bloody world, basically. And the same goes for Australians, New Zealanders, Canadians, and back in the day, South Africans. Our frontier was kind of worldwide. And we've lost it now. All right, there's 14 British overseas territories still. But they're all pretty damn safe, to be honest with you. Apart from the Falklands back in 1982, they're all pretty damn safe. But they're still interesting places to visit, and I think more Brits should go and visit them. But yeah, we have lost something with the empire. I mean, one thing I keep wanting to do a debate with Semiagog, because he thinks the British Empire was like globalism, and I don't agree with him. I think the British Empire wasn't really, particularly when you look at the old Commonwealth, which is the white nations of the old empire. So Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and like I say, back in the day, South Africa, Rhodesia, what have you. I don't think it was globalist at all in those areas, really. I think that's a misunderstanding of what was going on. But people may disagree with me on that. Semiagog will, and I like Semiagog, but I'm happy to disagree with him on that particular thing. What do you think, Mitch? I know you're thinking of moving to maybe Russia or Eastern Europe, and that's kind of a frontier, isn't it, in a way? I think Russia still has a frontier in Siberia and this kind of story.
Yeah, like if you go to, for example, east of Ural Mountains, it's pretty much the government will incentivize you to buy up land cheap for like that Australian girl, on that Russian homestead girl.
Yeah. Mitch, sorry, Chris, do you know Australian homestead girl on YouTube?
Heard of her, have not seen her material. I generally don't.
She speaks pretty good Russian. I think she's married to a Russian dude. And she's got a really good channel, actually. Like it's always got English subtitles on it, so you can understand what they're talking about, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to follow it.
Yeah, but I'm a misogynist.
Yeah. Sorry?
I'm a misogynist, though.
Well, you don't follow women, you mean? Yeah.
I don't know. I every time they come up, in pretty much 99% of cases, I find it difficult to listen to them because, I mean, you get the occasional one that is really quite outstanding and says some very interesting things, but for the most part, a lot of them are just sort of following what the national kind of narrative is at the time. Anyway,
she doesn't do that, Chris. To be fair to this girl,
I'll take your word for it, but I'll let you watch it.
No.
I have too many things to consume as it is.
Yeah, all right. But no, she doesn't do that at all, because she doesn't do any of these talking points. All she does is show what she does. Yeah. And so sometimes she'll be sitting there like with a Russian couple who have moved from the city out to a little village somewhere and are running a little farm and all this kind of story. And she just lets the people talk. She doesn't come out with any talking points at all. Like she's a pretty cute Aussie chick and doesn't really like push anything. Really.
Oh well, you made it sound like she was another political commentator that I needed.
Oh no, she's not.
Sorry, all right, okay.
No, Mitch, she's not a political commentator. I don't think she even says anything about Ukraine or anything like that. She just says this is what we're doing, and she just shows what her family does. She seems like a traditional girl.
Yeah, she just does videos of like, I don't know, like talking up at dinner table with a family, or she'll talk about going to the Russian market and like showing what the supermarkets look like, even amidst the sanctions and whatnot.
There was a really good point brought up by, I think it was either I don't know, AA or Mr. D or something like that, when they were talking about the sort of the total lack of a social relational guidance that normally the culture was pretty good at providing. Like even you look at back in the sort of 19th century, and there were all these little books and stuff like that about manners and how to behave like a gentleman and how to behave like a lady. I even remember this very little book that my grandmother owned. It was like a book about that big, and it was just called "Don't." Things that you don't do. It's like, that stuff. It's like just learning how to be proper. And in terms of like women, they would teach them how to be a good housewife, and for men, it would teach them how to be good husbands and gentlemen. And that stuff's just like completely gone now. So stuff like that, what you were mentioning with the homesteading lady, more of that. I say.
100%, Chris. Yeah, like I said, she seems a pretty traditional girl. And she doesn't do politics at all. She just says this is my life in Russia, and I assume she's married to a Russian dude. and I think she probably speaks good Russian, although Mitch might disagree because Mitch is like this lingo expert dude. But yeah, but worth looking up. 555 says the British Empire was the greatest thing ever to happen, and yeah, I 100% agree with you. I don't think the results of it have been very great, but that was not what was initially intended. So, you know. But yeah, and also someone asked me about Aussie Cossack. Now, I like Aussie Cossack. I think many of the things he comes out with are great, but I think he sometimes pushes it a bit too much. Like, if he's going to be an Australian, he needs to be an Australian. And I'm a Brit guy, all right, and I absolutely support what Russia's doing in Ukraine, and I understand why they're doing it. And I basically support Russia, not Ukraine, because I don't like the big gay, and Ukraine is the big gay, basically. But on the other hand, I'm not going to support Russia against Britain. I do support Russia against Rishi Sunak. I mean, if you said to me, who would you rather fight for, Putin or Sunak, I'd say Putin every single time, because Putin is pro-Russian and Sunak is not pro-British. You know, and I think that's the thing that Aussie Cossack has to look at a little bit. Like, he needs to slightly rein back his position on Russia, because he's in danger of seeming anti-Australian. I don't think he is, but like, he's in danger of seeming that way. And a lady is shot saying he gets a lot of harassment from the New South Wales police. Of course he does, and he was in jail for 18 months. Or I don't know if it was 18 months, but quite a long time. But that was for naming a known pedophile. That's what he got sent to jail for. And I'm sorry, if you don't name a known pedophile, you're not a good bloke. Pedophiles are scum who should die. That's my honest opinion. In Minecraft, of course, Susan. Yeah.
Not in Minecraft for me, Susan.
Yeah, well,
I
actually,
disavow that,
yeah.
Susan.
On pedophiles, yeah. Like, pedophiles should die. I'm sorry. If you prey upon children, fuck them.
I'm pro death sentence for the most serious of crimes, and according to polling, that is the sensible centrist position.
Yep, totally agree. Yep, totally agree. Yeah, you're right. But Aussie Cossack, I think, has to rein in. He needs to make clear to people that he's pro-Australian people, even if he's not pro-Australian government. I mean, and no one's pro-Australian government, as far as I know, on our side of the fence at the moment. You know, who likes Albanese? I don't think anyone here does, you know.
I don't even know who that is.
Well,
He's our Prime Minister.
Oh, good God.
Sadly.
Is he as bad as Trudeau?
From Labour.
No.
No, he's not as bad as Trudeau,
Okay.
but that's almost impossible, I think.
I will
I
say,
don't know, Jacinda Ardern and Trudeau are on an even playing field, in my opinion.
Yeah. Even some of my sort of left of centre normie mates are now, one of which kept talking about moving to Canada, is now talking about how bad Trudeau was. So,
yeah, when you look at Canada, though, you've got to look like Midwest Canada and Midwest Canada is still quite based. It's like Western Canada is fucked, basically. Excuse my language, people in the chat. And there are bits on the West Coast which are pretty fucked as well. But Midwest Canada, like the prairie bits of Canada, are still pretty based on the whole.
yeah, I mean, one of the good things about some of the former colonies is they're quite your political systems can be quite federalized, which does help. We don't have that at all here. Although you have the Confederacy to thank for that.
True enough.
Yeah, I can't remember that guy's name actually. That it was a Jewish guy, wasn't he? Was he the Secretary of State for the Confederacy? He came to the UK and helped write up a lot of the legal structures for Canada and Australia.
I can't remember his name.
I need to have another look.
Look him up and let us know who he is, please, Adam. Mitch, what's your thinking on this stuff?
I don't. I can't say there's much for me to be said on, like, let's say, Australia or Canada, to be honest.
See, I kind of think that, like this Aussie homestead girl, and I'm sure it would also be true from Canadians and what have you, that a lot of those guys would fit quite easily into the Russia, and with their like in the rural areas with farmsteads and homesteads and this kind of stuff. I think a lot of those guys would fit there very easily.
Yeah, you get Russian Telegram, for argument's sake, who they're going at times about how one thing Russia should do is encourage immigration of, should we say, dissidently minded people from the West. So let's say Australian anti-COVID and let's say conservative types, but Russia ought to incentivize those sort of people to come over to Russia because chances are those people will be skilled in agriculture, for example.
Yeah.
So you get some Russians, but this is a very controversial idea that they should open up Kaliningrad Oblast to like all of Western Europeans in general and rename a place to Königsberg.
Well, I think Mitch. I think I'm right in saying Russia was almost the only country in the world that said to Afrikaners in South Africa, like white Afrikaner guys, if you come to Russia, you can get a farm here. I think I'm right that they were the only people who did offer those guys somewhere to go, and some of them took it up too.
Yeah, I imagine. I mean, I don't know how hard Russian will be from. I mean, Afrikaans is very similar to English. I don't know how much. I don't know. Like, I can imagine we won't short too much of a language, but apparently there's another. So in Hungary, there's a party called Mi Hazong, which means our homeland. They're trying to encourage Afrikaner farmers to move over to Hungary as well, like because Hungary is a very agricultural country.
Well, that might not be a bad idea. I mean, look, Afrikaans is like a guy from the Netherlands who I was taking around South Africa once said to me it was like baby Dutch. And Afrikaners can pretty much understand someone from Holland or even someone from Germany. Most Afrikaners could be, those guys can converse because the languages are similar enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Afrikaans. I mean, because the same goes with Dutch. It's like you get German with a K system, but then Dutch and because the thing about the Dutch language is it's kind of similar to the English in that it had to simplify because it was an imperial language. Because there's like a general rule that if a language becomes international, it will simplify itself to facilitate contact between, let's say, the conquerors and the conquered. For example, so
except for English, Mitch.
Well, like English had to simplify because of, for example, the voice.
But old English simplified for sure. But
yeah,
we also had all this. We had loads of Latin words, and then the Normans gave us loads of French words. And
yeah, it's like Old English, for example, used to have a very complicated case system at times. Then the Norse Vikings came along, and they could understand the words being said, but the grammar threw them off. So we had to simplify our language in the Danelaw to facilitate communication. So that's why you get some Norse words which become generally used, like they, for example, replaced the original Old English word for they, which is here, I think. Or you get words like ring, which replaces the Old English word beag, or for example. So then you get English, which also changed even more by the French. So we have to even simplify even further. And then you have the Empire, where we just take loads of words from different cultures. Like the word robot, for example, is a Slavic word which means worker.
Or bungalow, which I believe is an Indian word. Pajamas is an Indian word. But what I'm trying to say is I'm never going to argue with you about lingo, Mitch, because you know more about it than I'll ever know. But as far as I can work out, you can be extremely precise in English if you want to be, and you take the trouble to learn it.
Yeah, it's let's say, for example, in Hungarian, they can also be like really, really autistic with the details when you're saying a basic sentence. Like, for example, depending on what article you use, you have to use, because there's two different types of verbs. You've got definite and indefinite verbs. So if you say like a sentence like the Romanian is stealing our wallet, you have to use one verb for that. When you're saying stealing the wallet, you have to use a completely different verb. So it's like so Hungarian can also be really autistic on details like that.
Cool.
So it's like
sorry, carry on, Mitch, please.
oh, sorry. I forgot, lost my train of thought. So you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask Armin if he had anything on that.
No, language is not my thing. I can barely find my way around English. So,
well, here's the thing too with like what you were saying about you can be extremely precise with English. Like, while that's true, at the same time, I think it takes a lot more additional verbiage to actually create a precise description of something. Because I mean, in most languages, they'll have words that mean a specific, like a specific thing, and they'll have words that describe like words that will describe a lot, just one word. Whereas in English, we don't really have much of that, so we have to add all of these other words around it to sort of describe the same thing that another language can do in just one word or two words. But I mean,
yeah,
we can have much more complex grammar that way, which we do. We have retardedly complex grammar, especially like, you know, high English kind of thing. But it's still not as descriptive with as many words as other languages can be. So.
Yeah, it's like you get the word, for example, in Welsh, you got the word called hiraeth, which means sort of like, kind of means like longing for your homeland, like a very emotional longing for your country. Whereas we don't have a word for that in English.
I'll tell you what I will say.
Yearning for your country or something, longing. Yeah, exactly.
I tell you what I will say. When I first arrived in Australia, the love of my life, the late love of my life, told me that in Australian, for a sandwich, you say sanga. And of course, in English, you say sarnie. So in Pommy English, you say sarnie. Whereas in Australia, it's a sanger. So
Arlo's saying most confusing thing he heard in England was when people say he ate something, not he ate something. Do they spell it differently, or do they say AT, or they spell it ATE?
They spell it ATE.
Right.
If you ate something, you ate something.
Yeah.
No, but they say they ate. I ate something. That's what they always say.
Yeah, it's because like in German they have that little I letter with two dots above it, but it's like an E sound. You used to have that in English.
Right.
Like, because we went through some great vowel shift, but it only really happened in the south. Up north, it never really happened. So we still keep on to those sounds that make us sound like we're German, basically.
Craig55 says, I don't even want to get into Glaswegian. And here, this is a weird thing, guys. Like, my dad's ex-military mates, and most of his mates were ex-military, were almost all Geordies or Mackhams or Glaswegians. So, like, I can listen to a Geordie or a Mackham or a Glaswegian and understand them totally, because I've heard it since I was a little kid. Even though I'm a London dude, I can't speak it, but I understand exactly what they're saying. And yeah, it's like really different.
Oh, Biaki, is that true? The Aussie slang cobber is actually from Yiddish. No way is that true.
I don't know if that's true. I'm not sure about that.
Cobber, like we those words came from the fucking trench diggers, mate. Come on.
Outflanked by the Yids again.
No, hang on. Look,
no escape.
You almost never hear cobber anymore. Chris, do you hear it up there? Maybe.
A lot of the real older rural guys say it. Yeah.
The only time I used to hear it in like 2000, 2003 was like an RSL. Like if you went to a RSL, a return serviceman league place, they talked about cobber.
Tasmania, like well, like growing up, I'd hear a lot of that sort of like Tasmania was always a bit of a time capsule for those sorts of older ways of speaking. Because I mean, it's sort of regional too. I mean, you go to Queensland, and as you know, in Queensland, they say things completely differently as well, like putting "but" at the end of the sentence rather than at the beginning of the sentence.
But
So, and like it's although they're quite similar, they do have a lot of very different slang in different regions. But yeah, Tasmania, that like a lot of the older blokes would say "cobber." How you going, cobber? You all right? So
yeah, cobber
time's
it's
gone. Though
it's
time's
Aussie
gone.
it's Aussie for mate, basically.
But yeah, friend, mate, whatever.
Yeah, but yeah, Chris, you're right. I remember this. Like my skipper on the East Coast prawn trawler I used to work on out of Cairns, he would say that "but" at the end of every sentence. You know.
Oh, they all do it. I started fucking doing it by accident, and the first time I did it, it just came out naturally, like I didn't mean to. But as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, I cringed. It's just like, yeah, it's hot weather, but.
But it's kind of these kind of regional variations are what make us who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and the globalist bullshit people who are trying to take us over, they want to get rid of all that and make us all the same.
Yeah, they want us all to talk like people from Melbourne.
Yeah, I mean,
don't.
Yeah, Arlo makes a good point. He's talking about Scottish bogans are called Neds. Like a bogan in Melbourne or in Victoria, a bogan is like a working class kind of person, and probably not the brightest of the bright. But in Sydney, as Biarki is saying, they're known as Westies. So it's because they lived in Western Sydney, I guess.
Yeah, you should see who it lives in Western Sydney now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like when I lived I never lived in Sydney. I used to live in the Central Coast, which was
Parramatta is in the west,
beautiful
western part of Sydney, isn't it? Parramatta.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think
that's basically just Afghanistan now.
Oh, that's a shame.
Literally. Like we went there 4 years ago when I was doing a tour with my band. We went to Parramatta, and I can't remember the name, but yeah, it was like driving through it. It was like half the shop names are all in like fucking I don't know if, like what specific language, but most of the people walking around were definitely recognizably Afghanistan.
Look, maybe when I lived in Brisbane, and I used to work in the industrial estates all around Brisbane, and there was one area where they had a Huey chopper on a stand, and like no one who lived there was not Vietnamese, basically.
Right.
Everyone who lived there was Vietnamese, and like it was a place I didn't do business because you couldn't sell to these people. So you know, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I liked the Huey chopper; that was kind of cool. But yeah, absolutely. And there was someone in the chat who said something that was absolutely true. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it was Mitch. Yeah, so bogans are Aussie Gropniks. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely 100% true. Mitch.
Chavs.
Yeah, they're chavs. Yeah. So bogans, but only in like Melbourne and Victoria. As we were saying, if you go to New South Wales and Sydney, that's Westies. Same thing. And actually, many of them are very good people, by the way, or used to be.
Yeah, good art, down to earth.
Yeah. Back in the day, they were the sort of the earth Aussies, a bit like the Cockneys used to be in London, like who've all gone now.
Yeah, when they were like,
they all live in Essex these days.
The working class bogans were actually somewhat of like an endearing lot until meth decided to sweep through, and then that was the end of them basically. Now they're sort of most of them are just sort of like gypsy switching kind of scam artists and sit around on the dole all day and
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, you know, they like if you were a working class guy in Melbourne or Sydney, you'd be pretty much like a working class guy in London or Birmingham back in the day.
Yeah.
Is what Biarki's saying in chat true, that in Sydney the word for chavs is lad?
I don't know. Like I said, I've never lived in Sydney. I lived on the Central Coast near Gosford, which is beautiful. But I've never lived in Sydney, so it could be.
Oh,
And
because lad's quite a term
Biarki
of endearment in the UK.
Biarki's mostly a truthful dude.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Oh, look, I'll never say everything because I don't know what he says when I'm not looking at him. But you know, most of the things I see Biarki say are true. And if you go on Biarki's YouTube channel, you'll get really great stuff like the Bush Tucker Man and
I don't know
stuff like
how
that.
people can live in Sydney. I mean, as soon as I was there, I wanted to get the fuck out. It's hell. It's an absolute hell.
I mean, Sydney Harbour is so beautiful, though, Chris.
I never went there. I only seen photos.
Oh man, Sydney Harbour is so beautiful, and you get a ferry from Circular Quay, and you go out to some of the outer bits of it. Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is. I mean, like very rich suburbs all around that place because it is so beautiful. You'll pay
all the politicians
$1 million for a house.
All the politicians that have their holiday homes and stuff there, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Like I said, I've never lived in Sydney. I lived on the Central Coast, not so far from Gosford, and that was beautiful too. I mean, the beaches in that place, man. Oh God, they've got to be some of the best beaches in the entire world, I think.
Lots of sharks, though, eh?
Not really. I mean, I used to go swimming there without much worry. Come on, Chris. Are you going to do the Aussie thing of like every animal in Australia is going to kill you?
All the shark attacks happen to Sydney surfers, mate. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but like I said, I wasn't in Sydney. I was on the Central Coast. And even up to Newcastle. And Newcastle was like, it's one of the biggest cities in Australia, but it's like a big time working class city.
Yeah, it's a big shipping port, isn't it, mainly?
Yeah, port and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. And even that's lovely. It really is. It's like a great place to live. Like most British people would look at it and go, "Fuck me, yeah, I'd live it." You know what I mean? With nice weather and all the rest of it. I mean, all right, they get the occasional earthquake and what have you, because it's Australia, you know. Nothing is free. Nothing is free.
Well, the one time that I went to Newcastle, it got racked with like an historic storm, and you know how all the cargo ships are always sort of just out off the coast in Newcastle.
Mm-hmm.
They always have huge fleets of shipping ships, freight ships. Yeah, one of them got beached, and it was on the news and everything. So the one time that I go there, it was miserable, wet, flooded. Everything was broken, and then one of the major cargo ships got beached.
Were you?
And they couldn't get it out.
Chris, were you on a musical tour?
No. This is when I was like 16 or something.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I know you've travelled pretty much like a lot with bands and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we did a lot of touring.
Oh, good grief! I'm looking at pictures of that ship now.
Yeah. It was hilarious. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't get it off for ages.
How did you find, Chris, like touring with bands? Well, like I would assume it would be enormous fun.
It's pretty draining. I think it's like it's a certain personality that really enjoys long tours because it's fucking exhausting. Because like on top of all the short amount of time you get in each place, the performing itself is it's hard work and stuff like that. And especially if you if you're one of those sort of rock bands that enjoys a sniff, you soon get pretty drained. But it's a good bonding experience, that's for sure. If not everyone is a neurotic fucking whinger, then it's generally a good time. Yeah, we got going to Melbourne. Melbourne gigs were always fun because it's like an 8-hour drive over there and back, and yeah, it's just like a lads trip for the weekend.
I'm assuming, like, you know, you would have had all these. What do they call those girls who hang around bounds?
Groupies.
Yeah, you would have been surrounded by groupies and
in our hometown in Adelaide. Yeah, we did pretty well, but not in Melbourne. Like just like any other sort of band, unless you're really huge in Australia, then no one really knows who you are. But we made a bit of a splash in Melbourne the few times we played at Cherry Bar and places like that.
Yeah, Melbourne used to have a very good music scene, but I think it's dying now.
Oh, well, they did sort of once they stopped all the lockdowns and they let venues reopen. The ones that all didn't die from like the lockdowns themselves, all the businesses that managed to survive. The only ones that managed to survive really in terms of music venues are ones that got heavy subsidies from the government. Like the Melbourne Royal Theatre. But yeah, but other than that, yeah, it definitely died. Cherry Bar got sold.
I just remember, Chris, I went across to see the Whitlams, and I only went to see the Whitlams because my chick liked them. I'm all right with the Whitlams, but you know, my chick liked them. So, and we went in the pub opposite the pub where they were playing, and we had one drink each, and went across to go into the Whitlams, and we booked this ticket in advance online. And the fucking bouncer tried to stop me coming in. He said, "No, you've just come out of the pub, mate. I'm not going to let you in." I mean, he did it in the end after I explained to him that, yeah, I'd had one beer, mate, you know. But yeah, this is where we're at now. It's like, you know, you come out of a pub and they see you come out of a pub and you're not allowed to go into another bar. It's just fucking ludicrous, man.
Yep. Yeah, they're trying to crack down on drunk violence, mate.
Well, I've got a shaven head and I'm 6'2", so that was probably what it was.
Not allowed.
Yeah.
Do you have tattoos?
No, I don't have one tat because my granddad, who did have tats, said to me when I was a very small boy, never get tats. So I haven't got any.
Yeah, we had they introduced this rule at the Red Square when I was bouncing there in Adelaide, fucking years ago. And you know, Red Square was like basically the nightclub where all the people on pingers would go and have a good time. And of course, most of them are between the ages of 18 and 25. And of course, at that time, every second guy was getting sleeve tattoos and neck tattoos, even the ones that weren't, you know, like most kids, just like trendy kids, were just getting all these sleeve tattoos. And then they introduced a rule of no tattoos. You know, you can't no group of guys in unless there's an equal number of girls. I mean, that's a pretty normal rule for most nightclubs anyway. But yeah, when they introduced the tat rule, it was just like turning away half the patrons. It's like, you guys are fucking idiots.
Oh man, look, you know what? One of the things that gets on my nerves a bit, Chris, is that these days you get some of the so-called trads who will say, like, we've got to do everything like what happened in 1850, and that's ridiculous. It's never going to work today. You know, it's just not. I'm sorry. I wish in some ways I wish it could, but it's never going to work. Like, we are where we are.
You're starting to sound like Red Hawk.
Yeah, I like Red Hawk. I think he's a good bloke. I do like Red Hawk. I think he's a good bloke. And I think a lot of what he says is true. I mean, Red Hawk is, I think he said he's 29. And many people think he's younger
28.
than that.
Yeah, I thought he was 22 or 23.
No. Yeah, many people think he's younger than that. But he's about 28. And to me, when I was a young bloke, I was pretty much like him. Although when I was like him, there was no such thing as pickup eyes, you know what I mean? But you learn what to do with chicks, and chicks don't change, as Red Hawk says. They don't.
Yeah. Carl was completely right as well. I've always found it really frustrating, you know, listening to well, not Red Hawk, but the sort of people that orbit around him and that kind of sphere, where it's like, you know, you're gonna end up in an endless stream of disappointment if you're only ever seeing relationships in a transactional way. Because there is the human sentiment side of it that actually makes it work. And if you don't have that, like if you can't understand that, you know, it's a pair bonding experience based on, you know, emotions and, you know, like emotional attachment. If you're only ever seeing it as like some sort of transactional power game, then I don't know. I mean, Red Hawk and the others, they'll sort of always, as I keep saying, they keep adding caveats and addendums to those bits of advice. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's just a shit way to look at stuff, to always look at everything in a systemic way. Like if you're looking at the marriage market in this abstract, huge, you know, like civilizational concept, rather than just like, this is you're one person. All you have to do is worry about yourself. You're going to find stupid chicks, and you're going to find, you know, you are eventually going to find a woman that's going to merge with you perfectly. That's all you need to worry about. Don't go looking at the state of divorce in the US and statistics and all this sort of shit. It's just like, that's completely fucking irrelevant to you. You're one person. Worry about yourself. Like,
and of course, I mean, one of the other problems with that, with those statistics, is that they're taking divorce and marriages in the same year. So what you're looking at isn't necessarily an enormous divorce rate. It's just rock bottom marriage rates.
It's a pretty high divorce rate, though.
And you got to think too. If you're looking like, if you're a man and you're wanting to enter into a relationship with a woman, if the first thing you're doing is looking at fucking divorce statistics and letting that be your guiding sort of
100%. Yeah, Chris.
It's just
100%.
it's like, what a defeatist, retarded thing to do. Like, fuck me. Worry about yourself.
Yeah, 100%, Chris, and I agree with you. But on the other hand, like taking yourself as an example, there you are. I won't say you were a pop star, but they of course I won't say that. But there you are. You're a pretty manly bloke, and you have had a reasonably successful career.
Yeah, but
Plus, hang on. Let
Sorry.
me finish, mate. Then I'll let you answer. Plus, you've got your own business, and it's reasonably successful. And so, from a woman's point of view, like there's a number of pluses from for you. You see what I mean? But there are other blokes who are not in that position. So
yeah, but what I was going to say. What I was going to say is that I was literally the same as what Carl was when he met his missus. I was a fucking nothing when I met Caitlin. So, you know, I was broke. Every time I looked at my bank balance, it was like minus $42. So,
but this is another thing.
Was that when you were changing, Chris? Was that when you were changing from like music to your business, or
no? Like I was a bouncer at this time. Before I tried my hand in personal training, which after trying my personal training business, I became even more poor than I was before. But the point, like the whole point of that was saying that, you know, this is why I agree with Carl, because it's just like if I had met, you know, this woman that I was going to marry when I was literally at the absolute bottom of my economic sort of position, then I don't know, that means it's more about sentiment than it is about, you know, being seen as just a source of resources. I mean, and especially if you're going to be attracting a woman, if you're doing it just by like, you know, flashing cash and you know, advertising that, oh, I'm going to make you, you know, I'm going to make you happy with money and stuff and resources, then, you know, when it all washes out, that there's not actually anything really worth relationally in that sort of pair bonding, then they always end up in divorces, don't they? They just take half their shit and leave, because it's like, you don't actually satisfy any of my emotional needs. You were just like a cash cow. So
100%.
Kind of the other thing that I have with,
Adamant, please, I want to hear what you were going to say.
I mean, I do really like Red Hawk. I've tuned in. I know you've been on his Man's Hour stream, haven't you? I'm thinking of the right one.
Yes, I have, and
Yeah.
he's been on my streams too.
Yeah.
I want to get him on again. He's a
I
good,
really liked
good
as well
young
that
bloke.
stream he did with Dave the Distributor, even though they were fundamentally disagreeing. I thought it was.
Yep.
I thought it was
That
very
was
I'm
a
the
good
same.
stream.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I really like Red Hawk too. He's a good bloke.
Yeah.
So.
But I also I've never really had that much stock with a lot of this what's it, PA stuff, PUA stuff.
PUA, yeah.
I often find that a lot of this stuff just boils around to the fact that people either a lot of, especially young guys, are kind of not having the opportunities to meet women in a sort of neutral environment. It's all either done through dating websites, which very much favour them. Favour them in harmful ways as well, because of course a lot of those women get into a thing where they're chasing. They know that Mr. Right's going to be around the corner because they get showered with so much attention, and that negatively affects them in certain ways. Blah blah blah, whatever. Boo hoo, no one cares. And I don't mean that. And but similarly, the people that where they are getting the opportunities to meet women are usually in environments where it's kind of perpetuating a very negative feedback loop, where it's sort of perpetuating a lot of the same negative interactions over and over again.
Yeah.
And I don't want to push the whole meme of like go and meet a woman at church, because believe me, I've been trying. It's not the easiest, but that's kind of what needs to be looked at and fixed is finding ways to meet and interact with women in a more positive space.
Yeah, but I mean, so in regards to something like Tinder, again, that's like what we were talking about earlier about daddy issues and stuff like that. It's like that's just a who's who pick and mix of women with daddy issues basically, and it's like a hypergamous sort of hookup app basically. So that's just a terrible place to source a relationship, which a lot of guys get very disheartened with, especially when they match up with lots, but they just end up with nothing at the end of it. But it's like, no, not church. I mean, if you are religious and you're in a religious community and you go to church, fine if you meet a girl there. But it's just like, for the most part, it is literally just being out in the world and just being around people and doing stuff. Finding like the most cliche one is night classes, like a night class of even something that you're interested in that isn't particularly overly masculine, but something that's quite neutral. Do a night class, and before you know it, you'll meet women, and you might not meet a woman that you end up in a relationship, but the more you do that, the more you encounter women, because it's proximity that does it. It's like, it's not fucking sending an email to someone.
You have
it's
to
like,
be there to
this is why co-ed is such a problem, because proximity causes this stuff to happen. And that's why they have HR departments that are so densely filled with these people monitoring, relationship sort of stuff in corporations, because it's like they work long enough close side by side, they end up, it's getting a little bit of electricity, and that's just how it is. You need to get near them, around them, but not orbiting them and simping for them, but just being in proximity and talking to them and asking them questions and shit. And eventually, you'll find a woman. It doesn't matter who you are.
Chris, and everyone, all I would say is on that stream, until Sargon joined, when he totally, in my view, changed the stream in a wrong direction. Because
come on,
no, he's Sargon. He
was correct though. He was objectively
no, I
correct.
don't think he was actually, Chris. I don't. I'm sorry.
You don't think people should be in relationships out of love?
I do think people should be in relationships.
That's basically was his whole argument.
Yeah, I know that, but he also said Americans don't do this and Brits do, which is crap.
When they were quibbling over the divorce rates and stuff like that. I don't give a shit about that. It's just whatever. That was just a side note, really.
So look, I used to love Sargon in about 2014, and I stopped watching him after that. And he has come a long way since then, but he's still not my guy. But anyway, I would just say this is that where Red Hawk is right is 70% of divorces are started by women, not men. And they will do so if they're bored, if you lose your job, if you're not doing what you used to do, All of that is entirely true. And Biaki, please clip that anytime you like, mate. I don't care. But yeah. Yeah, Chris is right. Like you do have to love each other, but like a woman doesn't love you because you're a right winger. She doesn't love you because of all sorts of things. She might love you because you're a big blokey bloke like Chris is, and she thinks, yeah, he'll look after me. She might. But when you're talking about all these so-called incels, in inverted commas, on the right, and there are so many, the idea that they're going to find this right-wing girl who's walking through wheat fields is absolute bullshit. It's never going to happen, guys.
Yeah.
Look, you've got to find a relatively normal girl and then turn her into whatever it is you want.
Turn her into a goose stepping nugget.
I will point out that I have
absolutely
dated
not.
one of these wheat field women. they do exist. They are just pretty rare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very, very rare. Like you're almost never going to find one, and lucky at them, and you did. But like,
Right back.
really, you really like you've got to lead her into the right way of thinking.
Yeah.
Because most women are not like that. Most women don't give a shit about politics anyway. They're emotional creatures.
Yeah.
So, and it's been proven, like if you look in American elections, married white women are fairly right wing. Unmarried white women
especially
are
when they've had
certainly not.
kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as they've had children, that protective urge comes out, and they become quite conservative.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at someone like Lydia Shalott, who would fight for her children like to death, 100%, and I know she would. That's what you want, but you're never going to start with that. You're going to start with an average girl who kind of likes you. That's all you're going to get, and you've got to lead them into that position. And like Chris is like right because he often is, but Chris is a big blokey bloke man who loads of girls would like, you know.
Well, I mean, in the same way that there's a lot of guys that get sort of spurred on to improve themselves when they have a woman in their life, you know, it works kind of a different dynamic, but same sort of end result for women, which is that, you know, their man changes them too. So,
yeah, the traditional thing is women change blokes, but if you're a right wing bloke, it should be the other way around.
Well,
blokes change women.
So when you say women change men, that's only true in the domesticity side of it. You know, but just through the act of having kids and entering into a marriage, your investment in the woman changes your behavior from being, you know, sort of erratic or like impulsive, you know, maybe even a little bit violent towards other blokes or whatever. That just immediately calms them down. So that's the only real change they'll have. But the men will still change. The man will change the woman's personality just by time and proximity and pretty much osmosis. So
I mean,
he doesn't even have to try. She'll just adapt to his personality.
Yeah, super autistic comparison, but insurance companies will give you cheaper insurance if you're married as a bloke.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Mind you, I have to say this. I remember once when I lived on Thursday Island, like there was some dude who got his arm broke by some Thursday Islanders, which are like Torres Strait people, and my ex-late woman tried to like really get upset about this. I'd pick her up and carry her 100 yards up the road so she didn't get involved in this shit. It works both ways. It's not a one-way street, man.
And you see it with your own. Like, I mean, in Tasmania, I knew some like when I was bouncing down there when I was very young, 18, 19, I knew some very, very, very hard guys, like real fucking like meatheads who would love a biffo. And yeah, as soon as they got married and had kids, they just completely changed. Like they stayed home and, you know, raised their kids. And when you talk to them, they're just like, fucking hell, mate. I was a wild one, but yeah, once you have kids, it's all gone. It's like, yeah, you've got that investment in the future now. So
yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. Mitch, you haven't said anything for ages. What do you reckon, mate?
I'm not experienced when it comes to relationship stuff. I mean, I don't really know much about the state of like British women these days. I mean, most of the girls I've dated were foreigners. So,
Mitch, I can't believe you have not had some really beautiful Russian girl with long hair as your girlfriend at some stage.
that'll probably be me if I got to St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I mean, go for it, mate. I would.
Yeah, I mean, the girls I've been around with, like, you're talking like Polish women who went to the same uni as me, or vice versa with Hungarians. I can't say I've met any. Like, in terms of British women, I mean, you know, aside from like the pause crap, it's like you also get, for example, them doing too much makeup and very annoying stuff like that. For example, and it's just like what, you know, you don't want, like, for example, a guy like me, I wouldn't want to be dating a woman who looks like a big sex doll from Singapore or something.
Jesus, that sounds like my ideal woman. But like, so long as she's got long legs, big tits, and like, yeah, all right. I'm sorry. Like, I don't have unrealistic opinions about women. Women are just women. They never change. As Red Hawk correctly says, they never change. Women are always women. And like, you know, to win them, they have to think, oh, this guy's funny. This guy's like gonna look after me. It's that kind of stuff. And that's where I think a lot of people on the right lose their shit, because they don't realize that women never change. Women are always the same. Like, the laws have changed, and your chances of getting divorced are 70% the woman will do it. If you ever bore her, or you're not doing what she said. Bilbao in the chat says nice legs, non-negotiable. Absolutely, 100%. Totally agree. But yeah, you've got to like look. Women are just women, you know. They've been corrupted absolutely by our modern system. But to get a woman in the first place is still pretty much the same. And like, we're talking to Chris here, and Chris, as Chris's wife, is like going to produce a child pretty shortly, I think. So, you know, you can do it.
Couple months to go.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, well, it was the lie, the feminist lie that meant that she wanted to wait extra long. She wanted to have a career first, blah, blah, blah. Did the whole same rigmarole. And now that she's almost, I mean, we're very close to popping. And it's like, you can already see that she's just like, fuck, I wish I would have gone to housewife mode a lot earlier. It's just like, I told you. And they all say the same thing. Once they have kids, they're always like, fuck, I wish I did this a long time ago.
She'll be a good mother, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
But it's like,
yeah.
the institution, I don't want to call it an institution, the divorce, you know, the changes in divorce laws and all that sort of stuff is like, it's the reason it's killed relationships is because it's like, you know, people are taught these Hollywood fairy tales of romance where, like, you know, as soon as there's any sort of trough, or like, you know, you're feeling a little bit unfulfilled, you know, that's normally temporary if you're in a long-term relationship anyway. It generally picks up again. Yeah, they'll just go straight to the divorce course. It's just like, I'm unhappy now. It's obviously not meant to be. It's just like, That's not how it works. You basically you'll go through cycles of just falling in love with each other over and over and over again. That's just how it is, and you'll fall out and be a little bit distant and cold, but it actually comes back basically every time. So people are just unwilling to wait out that storm, and they're just like, "Oh, we obviously need to get divorced. This isn't working."
I mean, despite what I said earlier, divorces are now rocketing up in the UK because they brought in no fault divorce legislation.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. But on that note, I need to go because I've got a long day ahead of me tomorrow. So
No worries, mate.
Alan, thank you very much for joining the stream. You're the co-host of the stream, and Splendid Isolation would not be Splendid Isolation without you, mate.
Thanks.
So,
but have a good Christmas, everyone.
Happy Christmas and a good New Year.
Yeah, all of you too.
See you, mate.
All right, guys. Everything's been said tonight, I kind of agree with. I don't know. Let's end this on a positive note. What do you guys think is positive that has happened this year?
I'll just before we do, I'll just say that I really like that we do generally always start talking about like women and relationships and all that sort of stuff, because it's obviously like the most important thing to everyone.
Yes.
We like to talk about abstract sort of political ideas and philosophy and whatever, but it's just like at the end of the day, this is the stuff that's real and what actually matters to people. So I just like that we do always end up sort of veering back into this topic. It's good.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Like as a bloke, you need a woman and you want to get married and have kids because there's nothing more trad than that.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, I sort of like how, I don't know, I feel like the tides are shifting. That's sort of a positive. I don't know if that's just a naive kind of optimistic sense that I'm getting, but it does feel like there is a tide shift in the sort of public zeitgeist. I mean, obviously that's not including the dense cosmopolitan areas, but I'm noticing that it's just the narrative is starting to change and starting to go back in our direction. And as usual, it starts top down, and it starts with someone like Elon. Like they're all complaining that he's not this autistic proponent of free speech because he's revealed preferences that he wants to silence journalists and stuff like that. And I'm just thinking, yep, please fucking continue doing exactly that. The more these people are suppressed and pushed out, the better, because it's like these people ruined a lot of people's lives. The more they're punished and squashed, the better. So, yeah, that's a positive in my book. I mean, like this idea that we're ever going to get an absolutist free speech sort of society is fucking retarded. We've never had free speech, and we're never going to have free speech. And as they say, as the elite theorists say, all that matters is that you have your friends in power and not your enemies. So I think we're going to be going that way.
Well, so Chris, yeah, I didn't disagree with that. Mitch, what do you think?
I can remember. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, where I shared a photo of the Romanian revolution, and perhaps like because one of the big things that got that revolution to take place was that Romania went through a lot of austerity. A lot of people didn't have good enough food. There's a lot of suffering, and people just thought it was all for nothing. Let's say all the suffering that the West is going to go through the next few years, not just for Ukraine, but also for the whole green climate crap.
Yeah.
When all that turns out to be a load of bull in the end, perhaps that's when people will start doing more. I won't elaborate on that.
Mitch, I would just say, like, if I spoke Russian as well as you speak Russian, I would find myself the most cute, cheeky babe in the whole of Russia. I really would, mate. Honest. I'd like, as an Anglo, that's what I would do. And I reckon you could do that pretty easily because you're a very intelligent man, and you should go for that. And that's my Red Hawk advice to you.
Go to St. Petersburg.
Yeah, honestly, like do a month's holiday in St. Petersburg and find yourself the most cute Russian girl in the whole bloody city. I reckon you'd.
Are they even letting in British people?
I'm not sure, to be honest. There are people there.
Are you all the enemy of Putin right now?
Well, like I'm not. Like I said, I'd rather fight for Putin than Sunak any day.
No, but I mean, looking at us as a political body, anyone coming from the UK could be a potential subversive.
I'm sure Mitch knows more about them than I do.
I mean, the only information I get is like Russian, like let's say channels on YouTube. I'll say, "Oh, how to learn Russian." But I'll just say anyone's welcome in Russia so long as you respect the laws and whatever. Like,
right.
So for example, that Australian homestead girl, she can be in Russia as much as she likes because she speaks Russian. She generally has a respect for Russia. You know, she's not some arrogant Westoid who fancies just saying ridiculous shit about Russia all the time. So,
yeah.
it's like if I were to go to Russia, I'd have to do something like get a cheap flight to India, go to the embassy there, and then get a cheap flight from there onto Russia. I couldn't do it directly.
Mitch, I think I'm right in saying, Lady of Shalott says, can you still go to Russia on holidays? I think you can, but you got to go like somewhere like, as you said, India or Turkey first.
Yeah, and why do I feel like that if you have to go to an embassy, that you would have to like fill out a questionnaire to prove that you're not a subversive or something like that?
Well, Mitch ain't a subversive anyway. Mitch is
no, just sound too autistic to be subversive.
No, Mitch is like a pro-Russian dude anyway. So
yeah, that's what they'd have to prove. You'd have to pull out your phone and show your tweets about the Ukraine war. Okay, you check out.
You know what? I'm exactly the same. I'm as pro-Russian as Mitch is, pretty much.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to get like screenshots of all my Telegram activity, put in laminate, and then just present it to some Russian ambassador.
Just screenshot Thomas 777's Telegram post. Death to Ukraine.
Well, I kind of agree with death to Ukraine, to be honest with you, because it's like it's global homo deluxe. I mean, like, why would you support Ukraine? You know, if you're on the right in the West, and including on the right in the old Commonwealth, there is no reason to support Ukraine. All the people who love Ukraine are.
Tell Richard Spencer that.
Yeah, well, fuck that. CUNT, but yeah. and also fuck Colin Liddell, another CUNT. You know what? This is my last subject for this evening. Colin Liddell, who I've streamed with 5 times.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you either. But do you know what? That dude used to be great mates with a bloke called Nowicki. Yeah? Andy Nowicki. And I've streamed with Andy Nowicki twice now. And the first time I streamed with Andy Nowicki, I asked Colin Liddell, would you come on with Andy Nowicki? And he said, nah, you've got to have Andy on first. And these 2 dudes were 2 of the original alt-right guys, if you like. They really were.
What was the podcast called?
Andy Nowicki and Colin Liddell. They were 2 of the original alt-right guys who used to work with that fucking idiot Fed, who someone mentioned earlier on. What's his name? Who's that American guy who believes in the EU and Apollonosian nonsense and all that shit?
That just sounds like Richard Spencer.
Richard Spencer, yeah. They were all mates with Richard Spencer.
Okay.
All right.
I
So
know,
you
I know,
have Richard
I know an
Spencer.
Andy Warski. It's not Andy Warski, is it? Or is it
No, Andy Warski is just a moron. Don't worry about him. But yeah,
Okay.
no, Andy Nowicki, who is a good, independent thinking American, and Colin Liddell, who is a Scotsman, used to be great mates with the American dude you were just talking about, Chris. But then the American dude, of course, did his Roman
Okay,
salutes.
I've just found this Colin guy on the ADL. Okay,
Yeah. So
yeah, sorry, continue.
This is my final subject for this evening, and it's quite important actually because it concerns me myself. I said to Colin Liddell, would you come on a stream with Andy Nowicki? And Colin Liddell said, nah, you need to have Andy Nowicki on his own first. And so I did. And then Colin Liddell changed his channel from, I think it was Something Right, to Neocrat, which kind of tells you all you need to know about where he's at now. He's now totally a neocon, basically. Colin Liddell is a total neocon these days, and just slags off everyone. And then he wrote articles about Andy Nowicki, who used to be his mate, who he worked for years, going on about Andy Nowicki's divorce and this, that, and the other. And like, I just lost all faith in the dude. And now I've invited Andy Nowicki onto my Discord. I hope he joins. Don't know if he will, but I've asked him. I will ask him again if he misses it. And then Colin Liddell put up on his site about the dissident right, where he's got every neo-Nazi LARPer in the whole wide world. He put me on there and said, I go along with some supposed Nazi LARPers, who I don't agree with, by the way. And also, the reason I don't show my face is that my son's in the Royal Navy. Why did he include that last year? Why? I mean, it's true, but why did he include it? This is where I lose my shit with people because, like, even if I fell out with you, Chris, or you, Mitch, or Alan, or anyone, something that your son was doing would never, ever like feature in what I was doing. You can't trust these people.
That is leftist tactics.
Yeah, you cannot trust these people. You just can't.
Yep.
And I would say for our last stream in 2022, don't trust anyone who does that sort of shit. Just don't.
Yep. Families off limits.
Yeah. Leave people's sons, leave people's wives, all that stuff. You know, no good man on the right attacks anyone's son or wife or anything like that. We just don't do it. That's what makes us not leftists.
Amen.
So yeah, there I am. Anything, last things you want to say or shill, Chris or Mitch?
Not from me.
As always, go check out the Australian history streams that we're doing. Might be worth making a separate category as well, Duke, in the channel.
I will do that. I will do that.
Put them all in there because otherwise they get buried in all the other streams.
I will make a separate list for those streams. Absolutely.
Keep your eye out for that because we're going to be doing another couple of streams in the series after the new year.
I think we'll end up doing at least 3 more, probably.
Yeah. I want to sort of get into the background of each of the first governors, and sort of the peripheral stuff that led to them, being in the governorship, or any of the ones that were given temporary leadership over the colony over the start. And I would also like to talk a little bit more about the machinations of the colonial office and stuff in England at the time, and sort of the political stuff happening in the background. in England.
Chris, totally true, but I would also like to talk a little bit more about the original settlers in Australia and like what a hot bloody deal some of them had, you know, like getting a section and you had to chop all the trees down by hand.
Yes.
And this was a hard deal.
Mm.
And most of them made a go of it.
Yeah.
But boy, did you have to work hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, as I said in that stream, you know, all of the unskilled convicts that were emancipated, a lot of them ended up in horrific sort of circumstances work-wise, because, yeah, I mean, especially when they had to work through an Australian summer as native Brits, having to carry logs and all this sort of stuff over tricky terrain. A lot of them died. So, yeah, pretty harsh living. That we just have
Chris,
no conception of.
it got worse because after the end of transportation, of course, which all the Australian colonies gradually wanted to stop. And look, there were gold rushes in Australia, which I'm sure Chris and I will talk about in due course. Like you could come to Australia and make yourself like enormously rich. That was absolutely true, but it was very much the exception. But like coming to Australia as an average colonist after the end of transportation, like you and your missus and your 1.5 kids would be dumped in the middle of nowhere and were surrounded by gum trees, and like you had to knock all these gum trees down before you could plant anything.
Yeah.
And you did it with an axe. You know, it was like these guys were so hardworking; it was unbelievable.
Yep.
So yeah, I hope there'll be interesting streams that we'll do in due course. I want to wish everyone happy Christmas and a good New Year. And apart from that, we'll play us out with a tune.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Assuming it works, of course. Come.
Cheer up, my lads, 'tis to glory we steer. To add something more for you, we call you as free men, not slaves. For who are so free as the sons of the waves? Hearts of all our ships, jolly tons on our men, we always are ready. Steady, boys, steady. We fight and we conquer again and again. We never see our foes, but we wish them to stay. They never see us, but they wish us away. If they run, why we follow and run them ashore. Or if they will fight us, what can we do more? Hearts of all our ships, jolly tons our men, we always are ready.
Steady, boys, steady.
We fight and we conquer again and again. We'll still make them feel and we'll still make them flee, and draw them on shore as we draw them at sea. Then cheer up, my lads, with one heart let us sing. Oh, soldiers, oh, sailors, oh, statesmen and king, heart of all our ships, jolly tons of our men, we always are ready. Steady, boys, steady. We fight and we conquer again and again.
Okay, that was obviously Hearts of Oak, which is the March of the Royal Navy. Wish it had less women in it. Wish it was a bit bigger. There we go. Thank you very much to my guests, Adaman, Mitch, and Chris Gard. Go and check out the YouTube channels. I will put the DLs in the description later on after I've had a sleep. And have a very happy Christmas and a great New Year. And we'll see you in 2023.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year.